States Congress. This week, we wanted to bring you part 2 of that conversation, where we talked about what's next for both Mia Love and the Republican Party. You and I, on the air and off the air, have had a lot of discussions over the years about the Republican Party.
Yeah.
What it has been and what it is now.
Yeah.
And where it's going. And you talked a little bit about President Trump. I think the press conference, where he mentioned you by name and others, many of us looked at that in absolute amazement. And the part about you, I mean, there's one thing when a race is tight and everything, but boy, he had you certified dead, buried, and the headstone ordered, and it wasn't even a done deal. Above and beyond maybe what you've even said, I mean, how did that hit you in your heart and in your home?
Well, first of all, let me say very clearly that anybody that would take the things that I said at the press conference to divide us as Utahns, or say that we were talking about here, Utah, I was talking about national Republicans, national Democrats, national politicians in Washington. But anybody that would take what I said and try and divide us, to me, I would say would have an ulterior motive to either be promoting themselves or somebody else, or doing everything they can to keep minorities and communities trapped in the situations that they are. We need to give them as many choices as possible, and I believe that we need to show them that Republicans actually care. So when I was looking at what the president said about me, I was floored, because I said, this is the problem. How can my parents, who are Republicans in Connecticut, and my family, who are Republicans here, feel like they can trust the president? It almost felt as if he didn't need me, or he knew I wasn't going to be useful, so he said, well, you know, he made a mockery of it. And to me, that was a breach of trust, because I felt like we had a good working relationship. I am not going to mince words for him. If he does something wrong, I call him out. I would do that with family members. I would do that with anyone. And so when he made some of those comments previously, I felt like it was my duty to call him out and say, no, we don't talk like that about other people. We respect each other. And so, you know, getting that, what I felt, that's the part that I felt like we need to make people feel that we actually take them home. Because if he actually had a relationship, a good working relationship with me, I don't think he would have said what he said.
It was interesting when you talked about, you know, there's a difference between relationship and then basically convenient transactions.
Right, right.
And that makes me wonder, I'd like to get a little bit philosophical with you here. And you and I have discussed this before. Yeah. We attended an event together where I asked people, could Ronald Reagan be elected in the Republican Party today? We had some of the most influential Republican women in the state, and not one hand went up. That was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
The party is different now than it was 5 years ago. The party of Lincoln, the party of Theodore Roosevelt, the party of Reagan. What are we the party of now?
Well, I have to tell you, I am Republican. I'm always going to be Republican, because I believe that the policies really lift people from the lowest common denominator up. They're compassionate policies. They're policies that give people a chance. Those are the policies that we say in America, no one's predestined to be poor, and that we can remove people from the type of situations that make them feel like they're trapped. You know, we give people an option to go above and beyond. But I can tell you right now that if we are not reaching people in their hearts, if they don't like Republicans, if they don't like us, we're not going to expand the tent. You know, you look at issues like immigration. We are the party of good immigration policies. It drove me crazy, and as you know, I went against my own leadership so that we can make sure that we are the ones promoting policies and writing the policies in Congress, not letting the administration do that. That's not their job. Their job is to execute the laws that we write. So for us not to be able to do that in the House of Representatives, that I have to push against my own leadership so that the people that I represent can have a voice on the floor, that was an issue.
Theodore Roosevelt ran on the progressive ticket, commonly known as Bull Moose. Abraham Lincoln was certainly on the progressive side of ideas at the time. Everything was designed, and including with Ronald Reagan, was designed to expand human rights, expand the potential, make the tent bigger, welcome people in, and work toward a more perfect union. And again, I'll ask the question just straight up. Are we today the party of Trump? And does that represent what the Republicans should be?
That's not how it's supposed to, the party is not supposed to follow a person. The party is supposed to follow a platform.
But leaders do create the environment. Right. Leaders they'll move in and a positive vacuum or a negative vacuum. They will, and they do set the pace. They do kind of set the agenda, and they feed the American spirit. So I'll ask it again.
So I'm going to say the time for us to look to the White House, we can't look to the White House for examples. On any administration, by the way. We have to look within and find out what our voice is, which is exactly why I said I feel completely untethered, and I'm going to say exactly what's on my mind. I just feel as if history is going to write about us what we allow it to write about us, and we cannot allow somebody else to talk about our history, because if we do that, then I think that we're going to end up in an America that we don't recognize. So I think that it's up to you, me, all of the people that are watching today to figure out how they're going to set the example. I want my kids looking at my Twitter feed. I want them looking at what I say and how I behave, because I want to be responsible for what history writes about us.
You mentioned there's work to do, that you're certainly not through. You were specifically asked about 2020, the future. You have mentioned here and then in the press conference. I mean, you used all the words. You used unfettered, unshackled. It went on.
That's right.
So what is the future for Mia Love, and what would you like to tell our viewers now, kind of untethered?
It is first and foremost the thank you. Utah set an example, I think, for the world and for the nation. I believe that I was a member of Congress, well, at least until January, because they took me home. And so I want to say thank you. And I think that my job now is to do everything I can to show what the Republican Party is about, to actually bring people home, bring them into our hearts, and let them know that this is not politics as usual. A lot of people say this is just politics, it's not personal. Well, it is personal. Darn it, it's personal for every single person that politicians are making decisions for. It has been personal to me, and I think that every single one of the elected officials that are out in Washington make sure that they're not legislating from that seat there, that they're actually engaging on the local levels, that they're going into the places and with the people that they're making decisions for. So I hope that I can continue to be an example to my children, to let them know that the world doesn't revolve around them, that as a mom, that they can see me out there doing everything I can to be an example and making sure that we're not leaving our definition of what the Republican Party looks like to any one person.
Is there a bucket list job you want?
Oh, gosh.
In the not too far distant future, other than maybe mayor of Eureka, it's just over the hill.
Well, you know, no, this is not something, being a member of Congress is not something I said I wanted to do when I grow up. So, but it actually is, you know, opportunities find themselves, and you have to figure out whether, if an opportunity comes, whether you're going to rise to the occasion or whether you're going to regret not taking up an opportunity. All I can say is I'm going to lend my service to the betterment of society, to Utah and to our country, and wherever that leads me, that's where I'm going to be. That's where I'm going to go. And at least my children and history will say she dedicated her life to service, and honest service, compassionate service that is actually relationship driven, not transactional. And so that's what I'm going to do.
Our thanks to Representative Mia Love for